Welcome to Life Stories. Imagine spending years believing you were the reason your marriage was falling apart, only to discover that the real betrayal had been happening right under your nose. When Emily uncovered the shocking truth about her husband's deception and her own sister's betrayal, she didn't just walk away. She took back her power in the most unexpected way. This is a story of lies, revenge, and ultimate justice. Stay tuned as we dive into today's unbelievable tale. Subscribe to Life Stories to start today's journey. The day I caught my sister consoling my husband about my supposed infertility was the day my world shattered into a million razor-sharp pieces. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hands gripping the shopping bags I had brought home early from my grocery run. The weight of fresh produce suddenly felt unbearable as I listened to their voices drifting from the kitchen. The house that had once been my safe haven, my sanctuary, had become the stage for a betrayal so cruel, so insidious, that I struggled to believe it was real. My name is Emily. I would have introduced myself only days ago with warmth and confidence. I have a wonderful husband, Nathan, and a younger sister, Madison, who is my best friend. That was who I thought I was, a woman with a perfect life, built on love, trust, and the promise of a future filled with happiness. But in that moment, as I heard Madison's voice, soft and sweet, laced with an affection that made my stomach churn, I knew that everything I believed had been a lie. "It's not your fault," she murmured, her words floating in the air like poison. "You've done everything you could, Nathan. Emily is the one who can't give you what you want." The shopping bags slipped from my fingers, but I caught them just before they hit the floor. My heart pounded against my ribs. My breath caught somewhere between rage and heartbreak. I inched closer to the kitchen doorway, desperate yet terrified to hear what would come next. Nathan sighed, his voice raw. I want a family so badly, Maddie. Every time I see a father playing with his kids at the park, it kills me inside." I closed my eyes, willing myself not to cry, not to make a sound. "I know, sweetie," Madison cooed, her tone dripping with manufactured sympathy. "Have you considered other options?" "What do you mean?" Nathan asked. There was a pause, the kind that makes the air thick with unspoken treachery. "Well," she finally continued, lowering her voice, "the doctors confirmed it's Emily's problem, right? Maybe it's time to think about moving on, finding someone who can give you the family you deserve." Silence. A long, aching silence that stretched across the space between them. Between me and the life I thought I had. I waited for Nathan to defend me, to shut down this conversation, to tell my sister she was out of line. I waited for my husband, the man who had vowed to stand beside me in sickness and in health, to prove that our love was stronger than this moment of weakness. Instead, I heard him sigh again, quieter this time. "I can't do that to Emily." Madison's voice rose, urgent and pleading, the false concern in her tone making my skin crawl. "But she's doing it to you, Nathan. She's stealing your chance at happiness, at being a father. Every day you stay with her is another day you're losing." I backed away from the doorway, my vision blurring. My hands, suddenly numb, failed me, and the shopping bags finally fell, sending oranges rolling across the hardwood floor. The conversation stopped abruptly. "Emily?" Nathan called out. "Is that you?" I couldn't face them. Not yet. Not after hearing the truth from their own lips. So I ran. I barely remember getting into my car, my hands trembling as I gripped the steering wheel, driving with no destination in mind. The city blurred past me, a smear of lights and movement, but I saw none of it. My mind played their words on a loop, over and over again, each syllable carving fresh wounds into my heart. I ended up at Lauren's house, my best friend, my confidant, the one person I knew wouldn't betray me. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without a word. "What happened?" she asked as I collapsed onto her couch, the weight of my heartbreak crushing me from the inside out. "They're plotting against me, Lauren," I sobbed, my voice broken and unrecognizable. "My own sister, my husband." Lauren's face hardened. "Slow down," she said, sitting beside me, gripping my hands tightly. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the fertility treatments, About how every negative pregnancy test felt like a blade twisting in my chest. I told her how Nathan had been growing distant. How Madison had inserted herself into our lives under the guise of being supportive. How she was always there. Always whispering words of comfort. Always a little too close. Lauren listened, her grip on my hands tightening as I spoke. Then, when I finally fell silent, her eyes burned with quiet fury. "Something's not right," she said. "Have you ever seen these medical reports yourself? The ones saying you're the problem?" I blinked, confused by the question. "No, Nathan always handled the medical stuff. He said it stressed me out too much." Lauren let out a slow, measured breath, as if holding herself back from screaming. Then she handed me her phone. "Call your doctor," she said. "Now, ask for copies of everything." My hands trembled as I dialed the number. 10 minutes later, I hung up, my face drained of color. They never ran those tests on me," I whispered. "The ones Nathan showed me, they don't exist in their records." Lauren's expression darkened. "Emily," she said slowly, "I think you need to do some digging. This doesn't add up." And in that moment, as I sat there in my best friend's living room, something inside me shifted. The grief, the heartbreak, the unbearable pain, none of it disappeared. But underneath it all, something colder, harder, and stronger began to take shape. I had been deceived. I had been betrayed. And I would not be a victim. Lauren's words echoed in my mind as I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Have you ever seen these medical reports yourself? Call your doctor. Now. This doesn't add up." I had spent years believing that I was the problem. That I was the reason Nathan and I couldn't have children. That my body had failed me. Failed us. I had blamed myself for every tear Nathan shed. Every time his gaze lingered on a father playing with his child. Every time he sighed and said, "It's okay, Emily. We'll figure it out." But it wasn't okay. And I wasn't the one who needed figuring out. By the time I forced myself to return home, the sun had set, casting long shadows over the quiet suburban street. My fingers hovered over the doorknob as I braced myself, forcing my breath to steady before stepping inside. Nathan was waiting in the living room, pacing. "Where have you been?" he asked, his voice laced with what sounded like concern. I was worried sick. He rushed toward me, arms outstretched, but I took a step back. "I needed some air," I said, watching his face carefully. Nathan exhaled in relief. "After dropping those groceries, you just disappeared." I studied him, searching for any flicker of guilt, any sign that he knew what I had overheard. He didn't. His shoulders relaxed slightly. "How much did you hear?" "Enough," I said simply. His face remained unreadable, but his eyes, those deep brown eyes I had once trusted without question, darted past me, scanning for something, or someone. "Where's Madison?" I asked. "She left," he said quickly, running a hand through his hair. "Look, Emily, she was just trying to help." "Help who?" I cut in, my voice eerily calm. "You? Or herself?" Nathan hesitated for just a second too long. Then his phone buzzed. The sound cut through the thick silence like a knife. And before he could react, I glanced down. Madison. My stomach turned. Nathan quickly flipped the phone face down on the counter. "Emily, listen. I'm tired," I said, cutting him off again. I turned toward the stairs, my voice empty, my heart numb. "I'm going to bed." That night, I lay awake in the darkness, staring at the ceiling while Nathan slept soundly beside me. My mind raced through every interaction, every hushed conversation between him and Madison, every time she had comforted him while I was drowning in guilt. I thought about the way she had always been there, weaving herself into the fabric of our marriage, under the guise of helping. I thought about the forged medical records. I thought about what Lauren had said before I left her house. "You need to do some digging." At exactly 2 a.m., I watched from the bedroom window as Nathan's car pulled out of the driveway. I waited. 20 minutes later, I followed. When I drove past Madison's apartment complex, Nathan's car was parked outside. A sickening calm washed over me. I turned the wheel and headed home, my hands no longer shaking. Because if I had learned one thing tonight, it was this. Sometimes the most painful truths come in the dead of night, when the world is quiet enough to hear your heart breaking. But as I pulled into our driveway, another realization crept into my mind. This wasn't just about heartbreak. This was about justice. And I was going to get mine. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I waited for Nathan to leave, watching from the window as his car disappeared around the corner. Then, I began my search. Our home office held 5 years of memories. Neatly organized in files and drawers, Nathan's meticulous system, built on the illusion of order and control. Where are those medical reports? I muttered, rifling through his desk. The bottom drawer was locked. A problem, but not an unsolvable one. Nathan had always been forgetful with keys. A habit he had carried from his college days. He used to tape a spare key under his desk, just in case. I reached underneath. My fingers brushed against the cool metal. Found it. My hands trembled as I unlocked the drawer. Inside, I found a manila folder labeled Fertility Clinic. The documents looked official at first glance. But as I flipped through them, something felt off. I snapped photos and texted them to Lauren. My phone rang almost immediately. Emily. Lauren's voice was sharp. Urgent. Look at the letterhead. The clinic's address is wrong. I just checked their website. My blood turned to ice. What? And the doctor's signature, Drive. Harrison retired 2 years ago. These are fake. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. How? Why? Then, like a puzzle snapping into place, I remembered something. Madison. Her job at the printing company. Her bragging about her graphic design skills. Her saying, I can recreate any document perfectly. At the time, I had laughed, proud of her talent. Now, I wanted to be sick. My phone buzzed again. A call from Nathan. I declined it and texted back. Working through lunch. Talk later. I wasn't done yet. I dug deeper into the drawer and found a small notebook. Inside were dates, times, and locations, meetings between Nathan and Madison. Going back months. Some entries had little hearts drawn next to them. A fresh wave of nausea rolled over me. I swallowed hard and called Lauren. Come over. I choked out. Now. She arrived 15 minutes later. Coffee in one hand, determination in her eyes. Emily, she said, gripping my shoulders. We're getting to the bottom of this. Today. And we did. Within an hour, we had uncovered everything. The fake medical reports. The secret meetings. The suspicious bank transfers labeled consulting fees. All of it. But the final blow came when we found a receipt. Nathan's own fertility test. From a different clinic. 3 months ago. I dialed the number. My voice calm and professional. Hi, this is Dr. Walker's office. We need to verify some test results for Nathan Bennett. There seems to be a discrepancy in our records. The receptionist was more than happy to help. Oh yes. Poor Mr. Bennett. Such a difficult diagnosis. Complete azoospermia. He'll never be able to father children naturally. My heart stopped. Lauren snatched the phone. Thank you. That's all we needed. Then she turned to me and whispered. Emily, it was never you. My whole body went cold. It was never me. I repeated, my voice hollow. Nathan was the one who couldn't have children. And he and Madison had let me believe otherwise. Lauren grabbed my hand, her grip grounding me as my entire world tilted. It was never you, she repeated, her voice quiet but firm. Nathan was the one who couldn't have children. Not me. Not once in our years of trying. In all of the nights I spent crying. Blaming myself. Had he ever told me the truth? He had let me carry that burden alone. Worse, he and Madison had twisted the knife. Forging documents. Spinning lies. Leading me to believe I was the broken one. And for what? For control? For manipulation? To make me feel small enough that I would step aside? I gritted my teeth and closed my eyes, forcing down the wave of emotions crashing through me. Pain, betrayal, humiliation, but beneath it all, something colder, something harder, rage. Lauren's voice pulled me back. Emily, we need to act carefully. I looked up at her, the anger in my chest sharpening into something more focused. I'm done being careful. I forced myself to take a deep breath, to push aside the hurricane of emotions so I could think. Nathan is infertile, but he let Madison blame me. He forged medical records. He's been lying to me for years. Lauren nodded. And based on these receipts, Madison helped him. She's in this just as deep. I stared at the evidence spread across my dining room table, the fake reports, the fertility test confirming Nathan's condition, the notes of their secret meetings, and the bank transfers. A plan began forming in my mind. I need a lawyer, I said. Lauren's lips quirked. Good thing you already know one. I exhaled. Josh. Within an hour, we were sitting in Josh's downtown office, spreading the evidence across his desk. He flipped through the documents, his face unreadable. This is substantial, he finally said, leaning back in his chair. The forged medical records alone are a crime. We can file for divorce immediately. Expose everything. But I shook my head. Not yet. Josh frowned. Emily, this is enough to bury them. What are you waiting for? I took a deep breath, feeling my resolve solidify. I have one more move to make first. Josh's eyes narrowed. What do you have in mind? I met his gaze, steel in my voice. Remember those eggs I froze 3 years ago before my cancer scare? His expression shifted. Yes. I want to know if they're still viable. Lauren sucked in a breath. Emily, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? I nodded. Nathan and Madison had tried to take everything from me, my marriage, my self-worth, my chance at being a mother. But they had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated how far I would go to take back what was mine. Josh leaned forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. You want to use the stored embryos? They're legally mine, I pointed out. And Nathan signed joint ownership papers for all fertility treatments. He has no idea I'm onto him. He won't even see it coming. Josh nodded slowly. Legally speaking, you're on solid ground. But Emily, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Lauren reached for my hand. Having a baby isn't something you do for revenge. It's forever. I met her gaze, my voice steady. I've wanted to be a mother my entire life. They tried to take that from me. But I'm not letting them win. Josh studied me for a long moment before finally nodding. All right, he said. Let's talk strategy. A week later, I sat in my doctor's office, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Your eggs are perfectly viable, Dr. Chen confirmed, reviewing my medical records. And with your health and age, the chances of success are very high. She hesitated before continuing. But Emily, are you sure about this? Having a child is a lifelong commitment. I met her gaze, my decision unwavering. Trust me, Dr. Chen, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. She nodded. All right, we'll begin preliminary testing this week. As I walked out of the clinic, my phone buzzed. A message from Nathan. Working late again. Don't wait up. I typed back a simple, okay, and called Josh. Everything's set, he said. I've documented all the legal permissions. They can't stop you, even if they find out. They won't, I said. Not until it's too late. That evening, Lauren came over with takeout and wine. We sat on my back porch, watching the sunset. I saw Madison today, Lauren said carefully. At the mall, she was shopping for wedding dresses. The wine glass froze halfway to my lips. Apparently, Lauren continued, she and Nathan are planning a spring wedding. 6 months from now. I set my glass down and smiled. Perfect timing. Lauren touched my arm. Emily, are you absolutely sure about this? I had my first IVF consultation this morning. I said. Dr. Chen thinks we can start the process next week. Lauren exhaled. And as far as anyone knows, I'm just a single woman using a sperm donor. I said smoothly. Technically, that's not even a lie. Lauren's phone buzzed. She checked it, and her face darkened. You need to see this. She handed me her phone. It was a social media post from Madison. A photo of her hand. An enormous diamond ring on her finger. The caption read, said yes to forever with my soulmate. Sometimes love takes unexpected paths to find its true destination. I let out a quiet laugh. Unexpected paths? Is that what she's calling it? There's more. Lauren scrolled down. She's been telling people you abandoned Nathan because you couldn't handle the fertility issues. My hands tightened around the wine glass. Of course she had. The next morning, I met with Josh again. His office felt like a war room. Documents spread across his desk. I've set up everything, he said. Separate bank accounts, documentation of their affair, proof of the forged medical records. When the time comes, they won't know what hit them. And the fertility clinic? I asked. All paperwork is in order. He assured me. Nathan can't legally be informed about any procedures. I pulled out my phone, showing him the engagement announcement. They're getting married in 6 months. Josh raised an eyebrow. That's ambitious. It's perfect, I said, because by then, I'll be ready. As I left his office, I placed a hand on my stomach. A slow, knowing smile spreading across my lips. They thought they had won. They thought they had taken everything from me. But in 6 months, when their perfect wedding day arrived, I would be bringing the ultimate truth with me. The next few weeks passed in a blur of doctor's appointments, hormone injections, and carefully laid plans. I told Nathan I had joined a yoga class and a book club. Small lies to explain my frequent absences. He barely noticed, too wrapped up in his secret life with Madison. The irony was almost laughable. He thought I was distracted, healing from our marriage struggles. In reality, I was growing stronger, preparing for the day when his carefully constructed house of lies would collapse. By the end of the month, my body had responded perfectly to the treatments. Everything looks great, Dr. Chen said during my checkup. The egg retrieval is scheduled for next week, and then we fertilize them with the stored samples. I nodded, gripping the edges of the exam table. And the chances of success? Very high, she said, giving me a reassuring smile. But Emily, I have to ask again, are you ready for this? I looked her straight in the eye. I'm ready for anything. The night before my retrieval procedure, Nathan came home late again, carrying the faint scent of Madison's perfume. I pretended to be asleep as he slipped into bed. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Dr. Chen. First follicle scan scheduled for Thursday. Looking good so far. I turned my back to Nathan, my hand resting on my stomach. Soon, I thought. Soon they'll learn that karma doesn't just come around, sometimes. It multiplies. 1 week later, I sat in Dr. Chen's office, staring at the ultrasound screen. Triplets, she announced, her voice soft yet certain. I let out a shaky breath. All 3 embryos took, she continued, pointing to the tiny, fluttering heartbeats on the monitor. See these 3 strong little ones? Congratulations, Emily. Tears blurred my vision. After all the deception, all the pain, here was my miracle, times 3. Dr. Chen placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. I'll give you a moment. As she stepped out, I pulled out my phone and texted Lauren. 3. I'm having 3 babies. Her response came immediately. OMG. On my way with ice cream. By the time I got home, Nathan had already packed for another weekend business trip. I didn't ask where he was really going. We both knew. Lauren arrived minutes later, holding 3 pints of ice cream. 1 for each baby. She grinned, kicking off her shoes. I let out a weak laugh. Already showing at 12 weeks. I'm going to get so fat. You're going to get caught if you stay here, she said suddenly, her tone serious. You can't hide 3 babies forever. Emily. Already handled. I patted the stack of papers on my coffee table. Josh found me a house in Cambridge. I move next week. Lauren's eyebrows shot up. And Nathan? I swallowed a spoonful of ice cream. Then shrugged. I left divorce papers on his desk this morning. Her jaw dropped. And irreconcilable differences, I said simply. He'll be too relieved to question it. The divorce went through faster than I expected. Nathan, eager to move forward with Madison, signed everything without reading the fine print, especially the part about genetic material rights. He had no idea he had just given up legal claim to any future children conceived from our fertility treatments. 4 months later, I waddled through my new home, setting up the nursery. 3 cribs. Lauren marveled, tightening the last screw. Are you sure you can handle this alone? I'm not alone. I smiled. I have you, don't I? My phone buzzed. A message from Josh. Wedding date set. May 15th at the Grand Hotel. I smirked. Perfect timing. Lauren sat beside me, a knowing look in her eyes. You're going, aren't you? I exhaled slowly. They need to know the truth. I said. And what better day to show them than on the day they think they've won? Lauren grabbed my hands. Emily, once you do this, there's no going back. I met her gaze. My resolve unwavering. There was never any going back. On the morning of May 15th, I dressed in a sleek navy gown that hugged my post-baby curves. The pregnancy weight had melted faster than expected thanks to months of late-night feedings. You look amazing, Lauren said, fixing my hair. They won't know what hit them. Sarah, the nanny I had hired specifically for this day, arrived at noon. You know the plan? I asked. She nodded. Wait in the lobby with the girls until you text me. If anyone asks, I'm just a guest's babysitter. I kissed each of my daughters, Lily, Rose, and Iris, before handing them to her. Then, I walked out the door, ready to rewrite the ending to my story. The Grand Hotel was packed with guests, laughter, and the clinking of champagne glasses. Inside the ballroom, Madison and Nathan sat at the head table, basking in their so-called perfect day. Lauren's phone buzzed. Josh says the toasts are about to start. She murmured. I exhaled and sent a single text to Sarah. Now, moments later, the ballroom doors swung open. A hush fell over the crowd. I stepped inside, my navy dress flowing behind me, my presence slicing through the atmosphere like a knife. Behind me, Sarah entered, pushing a triple stroller. 3 perfect baby girls, dressed in white. Gasps rippled through the room. Madison's face drained of color. Nathan's jaw clenched. I smiled. I have an announcement too, I said, my voice carrying across the stunned crowd. I stepped aside, revealing my daughters to the world. Nathan, Madison, meet your daughters. The silence was deafening. Then, in a broken whisper, Nathan said the only thing he could manage. That's impossible. I let the moment stretch. Let the weight of their lies, their deception, crash down upon them. Then, I took a step forward and delivered the final blow. Funny, I mused. That's what the doctors said about you having children, too. The room was silent. The weight of my words settled over the wedding like a thick fog, suffocating whatever joy Nathan and Madison had built on their lies. Nathan stood frozen, his face pale as he processed the truth. Madison clutched the table, her carefully constructed world crumbling before her eyes. You lied to me, Nathan whispered, his voice barely audible. You told me. I didn't have to. I cut him off. You let yourself believe what you wanted. You let Madison feed you lies because it was easier than facing the truth. Around us, guests murmured, some horrified, others intrigued. Phones were out, recording every moment of their perfect wedding turning into the biggest scandal of the year. Madison's voice cracked. Emily, please. I held up a hand. Save it. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to make sure you both live with the consequences of what you did. I turned to Sarah, who gently lifted Lily from the stroller. Say goodbye, sweetheart, I whispered, kissing her soft curls. Then, I looked at Nathan one last time. You had a chance to be a father, Nathan, but you chose deception over love. And now, you don't get to be part of their lives. With that, I walked out, pushing the stroller with my daughters, my true, undeniable proof of justice. As I stepped outside, the sun felt warmer, the air lighter. I had won, not through revenge, but through truth, because sometimes, the best way to destroy your enemies is simply to let them destroy themselves. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories for more real-life drama.